creating a false perception of who you are, creating some fake number of influence. People need to understand that these fake followers are not real people. And I've seen people try to make arguments. Well, what's the difference? It's the same as you running an ad. It's like, no, you're not. You know that's unethical.
Tony Whatley, a serial entrepreneur, co-founder of LS1 Tech, a podcast host, and a best-selling author.
With over 20 years of experience, he helps thousands achieve their dreams through his platform, 365 Driven.
When you go spend money on an advertisement, your hopes is that it shows up in front of eyeballs of real people, not bot farms. 2023, we started to see the shift towards authenticity, and content, this overly edited content is not really taking off like it used to. People that have been doing this for 5 years, they're consistent. They make videos every single day sometimes, but they aren't improving. They haven't changed anything, and they're wondering why nothing's going up. Being consistent is just not enough, because
the Content Capitalist Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. Today we've got a returning guest. This is the only second time I've ever done this. Usually the guests just come on once, but there's been a lot that's happened since the last time he was on. Please welcome Tony Whatley back to the Content Capitalist Show.
Hey, Ken, thanks for having me on again. It's always good to have that conversation with you, man.
Yeah, thank you. Since the last time we connected, we've both been creating a bit of content around calling out posers, fakers, who seem to be okay with living with the fake it till you make it mentality. And along the way, there's what I feel is like this integrity gap. There's the projected level of wealth and success that they want to show the world so that people will like them and want to buy their stuff. And then there's the reality, and there's quite a gap, right? And then this has happened where historically they ride this thing and their wealth does increase to where they actually are successful and wealthy. But they had to go through this stage. And some people are okay with that. When I look at it, I have different feelings, and I kind of want to, talk to you about this whole, this fake persona, this image of success that really isn't true, but actually can make people a lot of money.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. And to me, there's not enough people in the industry. We'll call it business and personal development. Those are the two kind of spaces I overlap in. And I know that you're as well in that kind of content. But I think that if you have integrity in these spaces, that you should police your industry. And I think that goes for if you're an attorney or if you're a doctor or an engineer, like I used to be an engineer. I think if you see things that are unethical or low integrity, you should be able to police your own industry and be able to call that kind of stuff out. And there's a few reasons that I do this kind of content, because some people will ask, like, isn't that just being negative or scarcity mindset? And the two main reasons I do that, okay? One is because you and I and everybody else watching this or listening to this, we don't know who all the frauds are. There are so many people in this space. It would be impossible for you to get to know everybody on a personal level, do the due diligence, the background checks, looking for history, Google searching them, social blading, looking at the fake followers they're buying on their Instagram. Like, there's just too many people. And so by putting out content with things that you oppose, things that you disagree with, and calling out the fake followers and the fake engagement and all the shenanigans that we see, my hopes is that the people that are doing that see my content, hear that message, and they feel really uncomfortable being around me. They don't invite me on their shows. They don't invite me to their stages. They don't want to collaborate with me. They don't want to work with me. And that's been a great thing, because a lot of the people I had kind of that yellow flag feeling, the gut feeling that we all have, I'm not on any of their stages, and they haven't been on my shows, and I haven't been on their shows, and it kind of blows up for them like a year, 2 years into the road. And so that's the first reason. It's just kind of like, hey, I don't call out names. I don't mention names, but I illustrate the behaviors and actions in the games that they're playing. That way people, for number two reason, is to educate people to be more aware. These are the games that you don't know that are going on in the background, but you need to know that this is what they're doing. That way you can be very observant and start to figure out how to do your own analysis and looking at their backgrounds and figuring out, oh man, they bought 100,000 fake followers, and what post likes? You can get people to like your posts that are robots, not even real people, and thousands of those. Like, yeah, you can, so you can get fake people replying to your posts. And so they've created a facade that they've got this huge influence and huge audience, and it's all fake.
Yeah. We're not immune to this. Like, I've been tempted to do that. I've had clients who I'm in the, the sales conversation with them, everything goes well, and they come back and they're just like, well, Ken, you just don't have, that big audience. So, we just want to work with someone who does. And it was those moments where I'm just thinking, you know what? There's like 30 spam messages I got in the last week that says, I could pay $1,000 and get 10,000 followers, or $100 even. Maybe I just go click that button, and that crossed my mind. And I think that the reason I didn't do it is because I understand how marketing works and how eventually that's just going to be a detriment to me being able to cut through and reach my audience. My stuff will get punished because my followers are not engaging. The algorithm's going to work against me and things. So then you just have to keep buying more and more and more. I guess it's kind of like taking steroids, like to keep up the image, you just got to keep stepping up that ladder. And I think that people who have done that are, first they come from a position of like, hey, this will help me. But then now they're addicted to the drug and they can't stop. Otherwise, they're going to have to climb down that mountain all the way and then go back up. And they don't like the idea of starting from scratch.
Yeah, it's all vanity metrics and based in ego. And I'll share a really good tool that's free to use so people can do this kind of assessment on people's social media. Go to socialblade.com, blade kind of like a knife, and create a free account. Use a burner email address if you want. You don't even have to use your real ad. You just have to have an email address. And once you create an account, you can select all the different social media apps from a pull down menu, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. And you type in the username of the account that you want the assessment of. And if they've got enough followers and activity, it'll show up, because it doesn't follow everybody, because some accounts just have no activity. But if they're average user kind of on these platforms, it kind of stores these data, and it'll show you the tracking of the followers per month since that account was created. It stores all the data. It knows how to extract that for somehow. And what you're looking for
is
if
there's a huge spike, right?
You're looking for a giant spike. Like, like if I have a post that goes viral, like I had one shared with Baller Busters, like that one picked up maybe
the Rolls Royce lean.
Yeah, it got like something like 500,000 views. But even though that went viral, I still only picked up maybe 800 followers. See, so that's not bad, 800. So that's a very small spike. And so what you're really looking for is where it's like flatlined, or people aren't making any followers, and then all of a sudden there's like 10,000 in one day or one weekend. Like no post going that viral is going to get you 10,000 followers. It just doesn't happen. And then you see this little pattern of like, oh, they did 10,000 here, then 20,000 here. Sometimes they just buy 100,000, and it stores all that. So you're looking for these giant spikes. Yeah, socialblade.com, and it's free. And the funny thing about that is that you talked about them losing followers. It tracks weekly and monthly, so you can see that they're just bleeding off these fake follower accounts and nobody's joining. So they're netting negatives, negative. And so let's say that you buy some fake follower account and you get up to 100,000 followers, because in your mind that's where you want to be, and then you bleed down to 80,000 followers, fake followers still. And again, that perception, they have to go buy more to fill that void. They're always having to do this, kind of get trapped into that. And look at the engagement, and nobody's liking their post, nobody's watching their stuff. It's because it's not real followers.
There's another site, I can't remember right now, but I'm going to make sure I get the link and put it in the description. But you could put any Instagram handle in this, and it'll analyze how much of the audience is likely to be, dead accounts, robot accounts, and real humans. And some people who I really love and respect, and I love their content, I think earlier on, they did the deed and they just bought a bunch. And you could just see there's a certain sector, a certain percentage. But then that helped them to maybe get on a TV appearance or guest on a famous podcast, because they were able to show the vanity metrics that opened a door. So now that actually kind of jump started a flywheel, and then they started getting more organic. So there's this kind of this uncomfortable situation in between where it does work to open some doors for people who are looking for those kind of numbers. And how do you feel about that? Like doing that as a stepping stone, or as like you might call it like a step ladder to get to a bigger stage?
I think that it still lacks integrity. And the thing is that when you buy fake followers and create a perception that you're much larger than you are, nobody's going to believe you when you go, well, I didn't know any better. And, my coach told me that I should do this. Like if I was your coach and I said, "Hey, Ken, go rob a bank, man. That's how you're going to get rich." And you're like, "Well, I want to be rich. So maybe I should go rob a bank." Like, no, you know that that's low integrity. Like that's criminal. Like you shouldn't be doing that. You're not doing things legitimately. You should have an ethical bone in your body that's like, I don't know if I want to do that. That just seems kind of fake, right? And I've seen people try to make that argument, especially in the comments on these kind of posts that we're talking about, where they're like, well, what's the difference? It's just like spending money on marketing. You're just spending money on marketing. It's the same as you buying an advertisement in a magazine or running an ad. It's like, no, you're not. Because when you go spend money on an advertisement, your hopes is that it shows up in front of the eyeballs of real people, not a bot farm. Like people need to understand that these fake followers are not real people. There's what they call follow farms, usually in some places in Middle East and in Asia, that if you see photos and you can go to YouTube and look these things up. They're literally giant warehouse rooms full of shelves with thousands of cell phones on these shelves. And they're all controlled by like a mainframe computer that kind of controls each of those as a separate account. And so when you buy these 1,000 fake followers, 100,000 fake followers, they're basically activating the phones to come follow you. And so they're not real people. And people will say, well, it's just like spending money on marketing. No, it's not, because you're creating a false perception of who you are, creating some fake number of influence. So that's unethical. Like that's fake. It's not like buying advertisement. I run ads on Instagram whenever I have a trending organic piece of content. I'll run ads because I want that piece of content to reach more people. Those people will end up choosing if they want to follow me or not based on what they see. So that's actually the ethical way to spend money to grow an audience, is by running actual advertisements.
I think that this could be compared to that girl Theranos, right? Who was faking all the test results to get funding. There's actually not so much difference there. She wanted investors. She wanted to make money. So she was faking data to show the numbers that the investors wanted. On social media, of course, this is a smaller scale. You're showing fake numbers. You're faking the test results in order to get deals. And if you look at it like that, I think it's pretty black and white. And thankfully, she's where she belongs.
Yeah, she's in and out of prison because she keeps having babies.
Is she? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I think she got out on maternity leave, and then she's back in, and then like she's pregnant. Like that's what I've heard. So it's kind of, she's still gaming the system.
Yeah, I know you say that you don't want to name names, but is it okay to name people publicly? Like this is already in the news and stuff?
Yeah, if you know of people that have been busted doing this, yeah.
Well, for example, Jay Shetty, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
His edge was the whole history of being a monk and having committed years of his life to, this whole life that he kind of made up. And now it's coming out that it's a very different story, reality, right? And his book is called Think Like a Monk. Everything he says sounds great, but it's been plagiarized or based on his unique history of having been a monk. You take those things away, he doesn't really stand out very much compared to everybody else. But that bought him all the fame. It got him, on the Ellen show. I don't know if he was on Oprah, but he was consulting presidents of countries and things like that.
He officiated weddings for major celebrities.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And I think the way I kind of see this is like when I use the term integrity gap, you're building this foundation for your business, your brand. And you, at some point, you decide to go buy some paper mache bricks because they're cheaper. And then you're going to put a few layers of that. And then you just keep building and building and building. And you don't know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen. But when there's that integrity gap, it's going to take one little shift and boom, you're finished. And that's what's happening, with people like Jay Shetty.
I think when you start your entire branding or your business based on these lies, just like you're saying, man, imagine trying to keep up with those lies for as long as you can and hope that nobody ever finds out, because as soon as they do, that's when the house of cards falls down, like you're saying. So yeah, Jay Shetty, I mean, attractive looking guy, blue eyes, charismatic, good smile, very good communicator. But other than that, he had nothing else going for him. And so he derived this monk story. And, there was actually a hit piece that came out on him like 2 weeks, major magazine. It kind of went viral again. And it even interviewed his ex-girlfriend from back in that era when he was kind of getting started. And he was doing all kinds of stuff just full of lies. Like he even changed what he got an education somewhere in England or UK, even changed the degree of what he actually got a degree in. It was business degree, and he changed it to like a psychology degree, like in his mind, you know. And his girlfriend of the time was like, "No, he went to school for a business degree, and now he's acting like he's a human behavior specialist guy," you know. And so people that were in the monk school with him, he did go, but he wasn't in the middle of nowhere being a monk for a few years in isolation and the whole thing like you see in movies. He was going like the thing like, and it was actually outside. It was in England. It wasn't even like in this exotic paradise, right? And so they were like, yeah, I remember him being in the monk school, and he was doing selfies and like doing social media the whole time. Like it wasn't like he was actually being like a normal monk. And they said most of the time we saw him just wearing like, you know, workout clothes versus like what they would normally wear as a monk. So like even then what that wasn't authentic. So yeah, he fooled a lot of people, and he had a lot of trite quotes and things like that. And we found out they were all plagiarized word for
I
word.
think the sad thing is though that in his case, just given his natural charisma and his skills, he could have built a very powerful brand. Maybe not as quickly, because I'm looking at, like, for example, there's somebody who I'm following on social media, Vin Giang, Vietnamese dude, and he's got these glasses. He's Asian. He talks about communication and stage presence and stuff.
Very quirky, like interesting guy.
Yeah, exactly. And just through his skills of communication and demonstrating how to do that, he's kind of becoming a big deal. And he's not weaving in stories about some Chinese mystic background or degrees or anything like that. He's just himself. And I think that Jay Shetty could have had that position.
I agree. I mean, it's storytelling. The early Jay Shetty content that helped him go viral, it was usually a talking head video, and he would be just telling a story. And he's a very good narrator and a very communicator, and he's interesting to look at. And he was just telling stories. And I think that's where it kind of got started. And then the monk thing kind of kicked in, and all these other things started to kind of take off. And I think he would have just, if he would have been a storyteller, he could have been like Trent Shelton, who's also got a giant audience from just storytelling and telling things. And this is what I feel, and this is what I see, and here's the world that I observe. And, but using his own words would have been nice too.
When I saw that video that you did, the Rolls Royce lean, and I love that for two reasons. Number one, I know you're a car guy and you love your cars. That was even a part of your last business, I believe. And number two, I never noticed that, that subtle lean. And then when you showed doing it on everything, that was hilarious. Could you tell me kind of your inspiration for that and what caused you to go and shoot that video?
Yeah. So the context of that is, yeah, I'm a car fanatic, and I've actually got a pretty large full service shop right in my back of my property. I built with lifts and tire machines. I can do everything back there. And as I'm looking at automotive content, I noticed that people that are in Rolls Royce always have like the selfie where they're leaning so they can show the headrest logo, the RR. And you start to see that pattern over and over. I'm a pattern guy. I start to notice that. And it's like, it seems like everybody that sits in a Rolls Royce, whether that's Wes Watson and all these other influencers that got Rolls Royces, they're always sitting crooked and showing the camera so that you can see like, hey, I'm in a Rolls Royce. It's kind of like the automotive version of keeping the Rolex watch in the shot, right? And so I just kind of said, that's kind of funny. I see that pattern, and comedy is really about just pointing out things that we observe, but no one ever mentions. That's why when you go to a comedy show, and I did a year of improv and some sketch writing and understand the science behind the comedy now, I said, it's just pointing out things that people observe on a daily basis, but they don't really see the pattern, and they're not used to someone calling that out or pointing it out. So when you point it out, of course, you're like, oh my gosh, that's true. And you start laughing. That's comedy. That's especially sketch comedy. And so I got the idea to create this piece of content where I was going to fake like I was in a Rolls Royce. I printed out, it's actually on my desk chair over there, still stuck to the desk chair. I got the Rolls Royce logo and I printed it out on a computer, and I got some tape and I just stuck it to the headrest of my Jeep. And I wrote a sketch of like, someday I would like to have a Rolls Royce, but now I only drive a Jeep, but I wanted to get a feel of what it was like so I could visualize that. And so it's all voiceover. I filmed all those skits, and then I did a voiceover over the entire video. And it's just funny because people were like, oh my God, he's that's true. Like they all do that. And there was a bunch of cut scenes in there with a bunch of influencers all sitting like that in their Rolls
Did
Royce.
any of those guys like give you any hate mail because
Oh,
you
they
put
all
their
got
shots in there?
tagged on Baller Buster. Every one of them got tagged, and half of them didn't respond, and half of them were like, "Yeah, you got me." Like they actually they had fun with it.
Yeah, and I think that for people who actually went and they got successful businesses, they got enough self-confidence that they're like, "Oh, yeah, that is funny," and I did notice I do that. And then some people get really pissed. The people who get pissed are probably the ones who are renting Rolls Royces. I'm gonna guess. Of course, that's just in my imagination right now. If you have the time or the willpower to do a part 2, I got a concept. Can I pitch it to you?
Sure, let's hear it, man.
So you see, and the moment I tell you the opening scene, you're gonna get where this is going. But you're gonna see guys walking into a chiropractic center, and they're all like cricket on one side. And as they walk in, the guy diagnoses, 5-year Rolls Royce owner, no, 15-year. They're just like grading how long they've been because they're all walking this cricket limp the whole time,
sitting cricket.
And then you end with a cutscene of all of the people leaning in the Rolls Royces, and then that'll be the punchline. Or something like that.
That would actually be a really good sequel to that. You're right. That would actually be funny. And people would have to have the context of the original to understand it, but they would get it. I'll give you a sneak preview of the one that I'll be cooking up next. That's kind of also making fun of that kind of thing behind the thing. We all know we love the ClickFunnels community, right? The 2 Comma Club Award. Russell Brunson gives these out every year. The Funnel Hacking Live, and people are posting this 2 Comma Club. I sold $1 million in revenue. What most people don't realize is the 2 Comma Club Award is lifetime revenue, not 1 year, not 1 month, but I sold $1 million over how it could be 10 years. And I finally got to it. So you get this award. And so everybody that's got one of those awards will always have it behind them on their wall, like in their videos and in their marketing. And so it's kind of that Rolls Royce thing again. I start to see the pattern. So I'm going to create a 1 comma award for someone that finally sold $1,000. And I'm going to act like they're all hyped up, and they're going to put the 1 comma on the back wall and carry it around with them. And I'm going to have total fun with that one. So it'll be like, I worked really hard and I got that first $1,000 in sales and I earned this. It's amazing. And then the cutscene will be like them with like a bunch of those commas on the walls. Like, and I got my 2nd comma award, my 3rd comma award, because that's what they do. And it's kind of comical, right? So I'm just going to have fun with that. People will know exactly what that means when they see it.
To build on that, like you could even have a shot of with you, like with the sandwich board with one in front and back, like walking down like Times Square thinking you're the shit.
I got 2 Comma Club awards. Like, 2 commas? No, well, they're 1 each, but I got 2 of them now.
Oh yeah, the end could be like, so I've gone from 1 comma to 2 commas. And then there's 1,000 plus 1,000. That would be awesome. And there's also that there's this shot that's of Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea. I saw this meme, and maybe this would be hilarious to work this in. And it shows this thing he does where he has this giant, it looks like a 3 meter by 3 meter portrait of himself that's like stuck on top of a black limousine. And they parade it around so that everybody has to go and bow and like pretty much, pay respects to this guy. And then the caption is, dude takes fire selfie, then realizes he banned the internet. So he's got to go, but then
pretty good.
Then remembers he banned the internet. But if you Photoshop, a 2 Comma Club award on instead of his face, the level of audacity of showing that off, that could be the next level.
Yeah. Hey, you guys that are watching are ClickFunnels fans. Sorry, it's good comedy. That's all it is. I mean,
you know what? I think ClickFunnels attracts such a mixed bag, because there's the opportunists, the people who've never done business, and Russell does such a good job of making it look easy to start that everybody jumps in. And there's a high rate of people who cut their teeth into entrepreneurship because of that. And then there's a high rate of people who have unrealistic expectations for how it's really going to go. But I do think it's fine that everybody, I think the term is I think my wife has said this many times, like if I knew how hard birthing a child would be, then I'd never have gotten fucked, right? But like there's your tolerance for pain and your capacity for doing work increases incrementally, so I think it's fair. But then because of that, you get all kinds. It's a circus. You get really legit successful people, and you get people who have no idea what the heck they're talking about, trying to mimic those legit successful people at the stage they're at without going through the process of what they did to get there. And that's how I see that community.
Well, a lot of times the marketing of that community, they like to brag about how much revenue they've done in the company, right? So they'll say, we've done over 100 million in sales, and they're positioning it like they're talking about their marketing agency. But what they're really talking about is the ad spend for their client. So let's say you had a couple clients that were.
Wait a sec, that's okay?
That's how they do it. This is kind of the marketing math that we see them doing, where we did over 100 million in sales.
And Russell's going to send you a plaque for that.
If you pushed $1 million through a funnel that's within your agency, you can have multiple funnels with it because it's affiliates, right? So you have one account, and you can have all these affiliate accounts that are within your same agency, and each individual funnel can push $1 million. You get a little award.
I thought at least it had to be for your business. That's what I thought. Like they were going to vet that at least.
It's all client work. These are all marketing agency guys. Now, there are some legit ones that are using their own funnel. And yeah, I don't want to discredit the people that actually are doing that. But when I hear someone says, hey, we did over 100 million, and yeah, you've got a few clients that are doing 5-10 million a piece. Collectively, their ad spend was $1 million. They've collectively done 100 million. It doesn't mean you have. It means you just pulled the levers and set up their ad campaigns for them,
Yeah. It's interesting. I had somebody who I knew. They had launched this YouTube channel, and then I knew him in the sense that we met at some of these conventions and stuff, and it is in this community, right? And he put out this course. Like, he never showed his face, this guy. No, he did show his face like on social media, but then he was promoting this method he figured out to create faceless YouTube channels that are, making a bunch of money. And then he kept saying, like, I don't want to give you the actual channel name because then that's going to ruin something. Like, he made it some reason. He doesn't want people copying his latest stuff or whatever, but he was selling a course on it. And he kept showing all these awards, like 100,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers. And then I knew this guy. So then I just started Googling fake YouTube awards. And there are so many of these Etsy accounts where they will, get actual metal boards and they will stamp the realistic looking logo and frame it, print whatever you want, send it to you. And recently I noticed they're doing 2 Comma Club awards.
Oh no. I didn't even see
that's how mainstream is getting.
You're giving me good information because I didn't even know that existed,
Yeah, it's that mainstream now. And I could order, I saw somebody post, like Alex Hormozy, he has this one where it's like the $100 million plaque, right? Where it's 25, 25, 25, 25, right? They sell those for $100.
For only $100.
Oh yeah, you can pay $100 and get one of those. So, it's
you and I could do this for free. We could just do it with a green screen. We could just put whatever we want on the background. I could put it on that TV screen back there.
When it comes to actually working on your public image, the image that's the marketable version of you, there's some lines that are, some people consider gray. Like that video I shot of just, drawing a sketch and, showing the integrity gap. It got like 20,000 people who viewed that, and a lot of comments, and these were by women actually and not by men. They said, women are such fakers too. All the makeup, the filters, like, the digital filters, right? And they were asking me to make a video calling the women out. And now I'm thinking, like, so some people consider that as a level of being out of integrity. Like, I guess for 2 reasons. One of them would be, yes, you get more sponsors on Instagram or, TikTok, wherever you are. Number 2, also it raises your marketability on the dating scene. And a lot of guys have shared stories of where they've been dating a girl for years, married even, and never seen them without makeup until one day they have a horrible surprise. So, like, where do we draw this line where some people think that that's crossing the line too?
I think first of all, I think if you were to create a content going after women in that regard, it would be, no one would like that. It would be a very bad situation.
You know what?
It would be
Women
bad.
are women,
Don't do that.
and we
Take my
communicate
advice.
differently.
Don't do that one. Stay in your
I'm
lane
not
on
going
that
to,
one.
but like the fact that people are commenting that tells me like some where people draw the line for what integrity is and what isn't.
There's a famous TikToker and a YouTuber that there's this woman, she's maybe mid 40s. She has no teeth, like literally has no teeth. And she looks kind of haggard, and she went really viral because she shows her entire makeup process where she puts her fake teeth in and does her makeup and puts a wig on, and she looks like a supermodel when she's done. And people have a hard time seeing that that's the same person. There's no way. And she's got several of those videos. This was maybe 2 years ago that she went kind of viral, and it kind of goes to show like you can make whatever you want. And I think that when it comes to personal appearance, if it makes you feel more confident and you want to go do something, like put your makeup on, ladies. Like there's nothing wrong with that. There's men wearing makeup too. Like every man that's on TV, like sportscasters and actors are all wearing makeup too, right? So I think that if it helps your confidence and it's really you, like go do it. It's no different than people getting plastic surgery to fix something that they're unhappy with, or someone getting braces to fix their teeth. Like I think you should invest that kind of stuff to go do that. Just make sure that when you show up in person, you at least resemble what they've seen online. Like if you're using a bunch of digital, AI type alterations are weird, and because there's a lot of that kind of stuff out there that make you look completely different than when they meet you in person. You're kind of like that person that had the fake followers. Like it's not reality, and it's not going to line up with what you've been showing. So if you're going to put makeup on or dress nicer or whatever you want to do, like just show up the same way, and people will be like, "Oh, that's cool," right? So I don't have a problem with that.
I think that you could kind of look at this as similar to how some people are using AI in their marketing, where you're digitizing, you're asking, the content you're making can be enhanced. It can be sped up. It can't help. But if you're letting it take over instead of you, then it's soulless. And one day the emperor's clothes are going to come off and you're going to be left standing naked. Like you just have to understand that that's a very real possibility down the road if you're not using it as a tool and instead you're replacing yourself, like the essence of who you are, with the technology, the masks, the cover-ups. And I say that that's where I'd probably draw the line. Like if it's something I couldn't actually do and I'm just having AI do it, or special effects, or whatever, if it's something that's not realistically me, then I'll be like, yeah, that's a no-go.
I'll give you an example. There's another guy that's on Instagram, and he goes by Goob, U2, like Goob, kind of like Goober.
I love that guy.
And he mostly calls out the frauds and the fitness industry. He like just tears people up that are using these fake filters and fake things that make them look different. And I'll give you an example. Like, so there's these apps that people can use, especially women. Well, they'll video themselves, and then they'll use AI to make their waist thinner, or their bottom bigger, or whatever they want to accentuate. They can do this within the video post processing. And then for the guys, like the guys will use it to make their shoulders look bigger and their biceps look bigger. And he'll go in and analyze the video and zoom in and show you the pixels and how things are blurred and point out like this is fake, and you can see it. And then sometimes even funnier, he'll find like their actual social media content, and he'll go, here's the original photo before he doctored it, and here's the after one. He'll put them side by side and show you like what they did. And he just calls people out for doing that, because a lot of these people are trying to sell something. That's the thing he really gets pissed off about, is their coaches. They're like, oh, I'm a fitness coach and I'm 58 years old, and look, I got a 6-pack, and you can look like this too. And he'll go find the real photo. And he's like, bro, like, I don't even know where that 6-pack came from. It's not even on the real photo, So it's weird. That's the kind of fraud that we should be calling out.
I think also the reason people like to fake all of their appearance, especially on digital platforms, is also the reason why Vision Pro and the likes are going to be eventually a huge success. Like imagine a world like in, Ready Player One, where people can look and sound and feel exactly how they want to, regardless of how they are in real physical form. And if human interaction is reduced to digital representations of ourselves, where the only thing that might be real is the style of communication you have with each other and the style of thinking you have, but represented visually completely different. Because obviously people want it because they're using it. And that will be the next degree where people don't even have to, like, video will be a thing of the past and it'll all be digital representation instead of even a modified video. And I think that's a dangerous road.
It is. It's all avatar based. You can be whatever character you want. Yeah, the opening scene of Ready Player One, there's monsters and there's superheroes and like whatever character you want, you can be. I think that it is something desired by the masses because of our own insecurities of being willing to put ourselves out there. I even share that story about myself. Prior to 2015, I had no interest in being on camera or stages or any kind of things like that. I've got a skin condition known as vitiligo. And so I'm literally covered with white spots head to toe. You could probably see some of the shading on my face. The light kind of keeps it bright, but I got really good at just avoiding cameras because of that. And I was very successful and I sold companies for millions and I built things and I hid behind the logos of my companies. I never had to be the center man, the front man. I was good being the MVP, right? And so after I had a car accident, I realized like I was just really hiding and I could have a stronger purpose. I need to be able to put myself out there. I had to do that hard work and the inner work to get the confidence to fire up a camera and start a podcast. And now I speak on some large stages. And that's a lot of work that most people are unwilling to do. And it took a near-death experience of me racing cars to finally start to put my purpose above my fear. Most people live in a fear mode where they're like, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be criticized. And so they just avoid putting themselves in situations like getting on camera like we do now. But I understand I can relate to that. But then again, I never wanted to fake myself. And I just had to evolve and gain more confidence and show up the way I should show up instead of trying to put all these filters and weird things and, hiding behind an avatar like that. I think that's the easy way out. And that's why so many people are kind of gravitating towards it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also want to try to understand where they're coming from. And I'd imagine that if I was in my early 20s and I'm still on the dating scene, that the urge for me to embellish what's online in order to attract the right kind of people would be stronger than right now when social media came upon me. I'm already in my 30s, and now I'm in my 40s, and I already have a certain level of confidence. I am married. I have kids. I have a track record. And I don't need or desire I'm not desperate, right? But in my 20s, I was desperate, and it's just a stage in life, and the girls are desperate. So I do want to sympathize with the fact that they're growing up at that age in an era where these tools are more readily available. And I can't say I know how they feel because I didn't experience that at that age.
Right. And I think that why we're seeing a shift now, I think 2023, we started to see the shift towards authenticity and content. And you're into video editing and all the different stuff that we see, all the new tools, technology, AI, all these enhancements. We're also seeing that some of this overly edited content is not really taking off like it used to, because at the time it was different. Nobody really was spending a lot of money and building these teams out. And so they were doing this overproduced, over-edited stuff, which stood out, like all the crazy memes and all the distractions and cutscenes and zooms and all the tactics that we can use. But people are really craving authenticity because everybody's kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And now just taking a walk down the road and having a heart-to-heart with your screen and talking about something that actually matters will actually get more attention than all this overproduced stuff. And so we're seeing this shift, and we're starting to expose some of the things like the fake followers and engagement. And, that even with podcasts, there's fake downloads because some people still like to still show a screenshot of the downloads of how many people listen to their show. You can buy fake downloads to pad that number. Like anything that has to do with numbers or vanity metrics can be defrauded now. So you understand that anything you look at, you have to kind of be a skeptic now because people are really creative. They realize like, hey, if podcasters are always worried about downloads because they can lie to potential advertisers like, well, I got 1 million downloads. Here's a screenshot. There's a lot of people still have the checkbook to write those kind of checks to advertise, but they aren't aware of this stuff. There's also been an emergence of agencies in recent times who will go do the due diligence to scour the internet to find true influencers with real engagement and real audiences. They'll go use all those tools, and they have their own tools. And so now they're having to qualify these people for these companies that don't know any better. Because think about that. You got a baby boomer sitting at Coca-Cola writing a marketing budget, they don't know about influencers. They're just hearing things from their, Gen Z employees. And so they just trust them, and then they write this big check and it doesn't get any kind of return on that. So they're like, what's going on? And so agencies are now popping up to validate the authenticity of influencer marketing. I think that's important.
Yeah, that is a potential market. I do remember when I used to use Windows, like back in the 90s, there was this ongoing conspiracy theory that all the viruses are created by the antivirus companies, right? And this could be the same thing here. The fake stats are created by the agencies that verify for fake statistics. Like, you just don't know how many levels of games are going on, and it's crazy. It's crazy. I made this post, and what it was, it just kind of showed a graph of, and we talked about right before we started the podcast. It says I'm an influencer at the top, and then there's 2 check boxes on the left side. It says as my main business, and then the next one says to help my business. And I think that, in my case, and probably yours, like, I started a business that was flowing cash that had, I think at the time 15 employees when I started showing myself on social media. And I felt like by being, and I didn't even use the word influencer, more like content creator, but these are just terms people throw around. But I used my influence through social media to educate people about content creation so that it would enhance my business in terms of people, knowing what they're talking about when we have a sales conversation, for example, or discovering and finding what we do. But then I think on the flip side, there's people who go into it thinking they're going to become millionaires. Someone like, the Kardashians did that. And, have you seen this happen too, where people are just really, they don't get the difference and they think that it's actually a legit business just to be an influencer?
There's 2 camps I started to recognize when I started to do the business coaching and executive coaching. There was the camp that people were focused mainly on growing influence, but they didn't make any income. So they were all about just trying to get as many followers as possible and trying to become famous. They were driven by fame, right? But most of them were broke. Most of them are still broke when I look back at some of these names. And then you had the ideal customers, which would be more people like that would be your clients or my clients. These are people who have income but don't have influence. They figured out the money problems, like you said, the business side of things, but now they want to make more impact or grow a personal brand and build influence on top of that because they've got it within their industry or within their organization, but not outside of those 2 things. And so those are ideal customers because they have money, they have confidence, they actually are competent and confident at what they know. They're very expert at something, and they're willing to pay to understand the business side of influence and impact outside in the public. And so that distinction, you have to realize, like, when you're first getting into the space, you don't know the difference because you're seeing content being created by everybody, and you just kind of lump them into one group until you start to realize, like, some people have money and some people are just trying to be famous, right? So I think it's always better to become an expert at something that has a good value, that you're being compensated for, that you've got proven results in, and then start to build your personal brand to add more opportunity to that. Because personal branding, you and I both know this, it's a huge, there's limitless potential on the upside of having a big personal brand. But if there's nothing to value on that backside of that, there's nothing that you can sell, there's nothing that you can solve people's challenges with, there's no real value other than being an entertainer, you better go all in and become the best entertainer that you can be. Otherwise, I'd rather be the business person that's building the brand.
I think that too many people get overly excited by the rare unicorn success stories like, Mr. Beast, who's getting monetized very well from the platform, but at the same time has leveraged his influence to, launch his Feastables brand and a lot of other brands. I think he's got a really good business brain on top of being a great content creator and influencer. But I think that there's 10,000 other people who are trying to be him, who are not him, and are gonna fail miserably. And then the other example people keep pointing out to is Khloe Kardashian, right? But from the get-go, her influence, she wasn't selling her influence. She was marketing her product, which is the lipstick, lineup, right? It was the cosmetics. She had a legitimate business, and she was heavily using social media to drive traffic and sales there. And so to say that you made your millions as an influencer, I think that, okay, there is one really successful group that does this is Dude Perfect. They don't really have a product except for themselves. But as soon as that dancing bear gets tired, their business is gone unless they figure out another model real quick. Mark Rober is another example on YouTube who he built his influence first and then figured out the business model later, which is his science kits. And now he uses YouTube to sell his subscription science kits. So
Jake Paul, another one.
does he have a product?
No, but
Prime,
he
right?
built influence first and then became the fighter, right?
Yeah, but again, he only makes money when he's performing.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's why I kind of see like a real business can perform without you, right?
Yeah, and he also has that Prime, the Prime energy drink. So he has a product that's actually doing exceptionally well.
I wouldn't touch this stuff, but it's good marketing.
I want to read this post that Neil Patel, he's well known in the marketing space. He made this post on his Twitter, and I shared this last week on my Facebook page. And he did a survey of nearly 6,000 influencers, and he knows them all. And the ones that had less than 100,000 followers, these are the average income from these people with less than 100,000 followers, like who are actually influencers, not talking about beginners. The average monthly income was $323. That's it. And he said it gets even worse that the people that have between 100,000 followers to 1 million followers, the average income only went to $1,727 per month, average income with that amount of followers. So that kind of tells you right there, if you're just chasing audience, you don't have a product or a business to back it up, you got a long way to go. If you're going to get 1 million real followers and only make an average of 1,700 a month, you're wasting a lot of time. You could do that waiting tables.
There's two parts of me that are kind of conflicted about this, right? And the one is the NBA dream, where the teens or the kids who are training and they want to get into the NBA it's like 10,000 to 1 or like 50,000 to 1, right? The people who can make a real career out of basketball. But then if there weren't that many people attempting and training, then there wouldn't be nearly as many really good top basketball players, right? Like you get that the top because there's a huge volume of people attempting, and then only the very, very best will get there. Whereas if there are very few people trying, then there will be a smaller sampling and a lower quality of players. So that's one side and then you hear stories of people working for years and years on their game and then finally getting in. But then for every one of those, there's 1,000 who didn't. So this could be a story of people chasing their dreams. But then I think the NBA has been long enough that people generally know their odds of getting in, right? And they know when it's time to pull the plug and go get a job. But on social media, I think it's new and the warnings are not apparent enough. So I think a lot of these guys their expectations are unrealistic, and there's no historical data there's not enough historical data that everybody knows, well, to actually make a full living is these are my odds. And after this much time, I should consider, changing course. So maybe that's the part where I'm torn. I think everybody should go, all in on what they're passionate about, but also know what their odds are before they go in with their, eyes closed, right?
Yeah, I think that going in and going all in, and even if some people call you delusional at the beginning, understand that anybody that's changed the world was labeled delusional until they proved them wrong. And so it's okay to be labeled that, and you're going to have critics, you're going to have naysayers, there's going to be people that aren't going to understand why you're creating content or doing something outside of your norm. But if you truly believe in what you're doing and your intentions are the right intentions because you're doing things, you want to impact the world, you want to help people, you want to change something, you got to keep fighting. And it takes years to finally get that kind of momentum and get the result on the backside of that. So if you're honest with yourself at the beginning and go, hey, I'm only going to halfway commit to this thing and kind of dabble and treat it like a hobby, you should only expect hobby and dabbling results. I think too many people get into doing content creation as a hobby and they kind of half-ass things and they get half-ass results and they go, oh, I haven't got 1 million followers yet, and I've been doing this for 2 years, and it's just I don't know if it's going to work out. Well, you got to be honest with yourself. Are you really putting in the effort? Are you improving? Are you hiring coaches? Are you working with a better producer? Like there's things that you can do to get to different levels that you're not going to get there just by yourself. You have to have that awareness and understand that people like the journey. People love the before and after. We love to see the transformation, but being consistent is just not enough. I think a lot of times I watch people that have been doing this for 5 years. They're consistent. They make videos every single day sometimes, but they aren't improving. They're exactly the same level of quality, the same level of skill, the same level of production. Like they haven't changed anything, and they're wondering why nothing's going up. They're not getting that hockey stick exponential growth. Is because consistency is just one component, but you always have to be evolving, changing, transforming. Like trying new pieces of content, exploring things. I mean, the biggest names didn't get there by just doing the exact same thing over and over every day.
My favorite podcast right now is one called How to Take Over the World by Ben Austin. Have you checked that one out?
I have not.
Oh, it's really great. But he recently did his first video interview. Basically, what he does is he studies biographies of people who, from his perspective, he feels like they took over the world in some way. So, of course, he does like Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Caesar, and then he goes into entrepreneurship, like Ray Kroc and Disney and people like that, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. I don't think he's on Elon yet, but he really blew up because Mr. Beast reached out to him a while ago. And he says, dude, I've been listening to all your podcasts and I see a lot of resemblances between me and some of these people. Are you seeing patterns that that I'm heading into with these kind of people? Like I'm getting into a certain stage of my life. Where do you see is the biggest mistake people make at this stage? So he started consulting him around like life decisions and stuff at his stage in his career. And just recently he did his very first YouTube video podcast with Mr. Beast. And he asked him some very good questions because he's been studying all these people that are world changers. And the biggest takeaway, and this is like an hour and a half interview, or maybe an hour. I watched the whole thing. The biggest takeaway I took is like, Mr. Beast says that in order to be as successful as he is, he says there's just three things. Number one, you got to be okay at presenting, right? Number two, you got to be a savage business person. And number three, you have to be ridiculously obsessed. So there's obsession, being a good presenter, and being really good at business. And they talked about a lot of other YouTubers who had 2, but not 3 of those pillars. But then the thing that came away in the end was really the difference between him and the others was that his savage business instincts told him how often he needed to pivot, right? Like he's obsessed. He does crazy things like count to from 0 to 100,000, in one sitting, right? Which is crazy. That's obsession. That got him a few viral videos. But then if he says, oh, that's my thing. Now I'm going to, do it in Japanese. Now I'm going to do it in French. Like some people get stuck on that thing, but then he pivots. And he does it so fast. Nobody is going to keep up with him. And anybody following him will never be him because of how fast he pivots. And it's exactly what you said there. But hearing Mr. Beast say it about himself, I was like, yeah, now if you just look at the history of his YouTube videos, that's exactly what he did. Before it was just giving money away for free. Now it's something else. It's challenges, a bunch of people, like character stories. So you got to layer all 3 in order to get to any level of success, I believe, or at least sustain that success.
Yeah. And especially with someone as young as he was when he got started, he also is aware that his core audience is also maturing and going through life and different phases of life, whether that's early relationships, marriage, having children. Like he's growing with them. And if he's really smart, he should be trying to keep the people that are growing with him instead of just trying to serve the younger audience, like the college and high school kids, like consistently. So I think that if you're wise, you understand your audience does shift if you're putting out content, but you got to also create different content that appeals to different age groups. And it's okay to transform and take the people with you.
Do you hear about his next big project?
No.
And this is a perfect example in pivoting. He cut a contract with Amazon Prime to do a reality show. And he says there's 3 world records that they're going to break when they do it. Number one, it's going to be the biggest prize money on any reality show. So we know that Squid Game was 4.65 million, right? So this one's going to be 5 million. and then there's going to be the most contestants in any reality TV show. We don't know what that number is going to be yet. And then he didn't reveal what the third one is. So exactly like you said, growing with the audience. Now Amazon Prime is reaching an audience of people who are not sitting down on YouTube, but are they're going to be at their TVs watching programmatic shows, just like they'd be watching Discovery Channel or the History Channel. There's the Mr. Beast channel now. So I do think that if this goes well, he is going to be bigger than every single other celebrity in the world. Like he's going to eclipse Taylor Swift. He's going to eclipse Beyonce. He's going to eclipse Eminem in terms of like being recognized as a household name.
Yeah, he'll be the first big celebrity, starting with a generation that grew up with screens in their face. So he kind of he's one of them, and he's kind of leading that wave of those people who grew up, all they ever seen was a screen in their face. So they're used to seeing the YouTubers. And, I'm a Gen Xer. I didn't grow up with a screen in my face. I didn't see a screen like that until maybe I was in my mid-20s. So I didn't have that childhood growing up with a screen.
There's something I want to ask you, not completely related to the main topic, but your lifts. You do some pretty heavy lifts. You do it sumo style, right? As far as in your deadlifts. Is there a certain number you're going for where you're going to continuously keep increasing it till you hit it?
The original number was to hit 500 pounds, and I hit that about a little over a year ago now. And I really started focusing more on the Olympic type lifts. I've always been good at bench press. I've benched over 300 pounds. I can still do that now, but I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'11". I weigh 185, 190 usually. So I'm not a big guy. It's just, I know that I'm willing to do the work, and it takes a long time, and I'm very results driven instead of just trying to get things instant gratification. I've always been someone that's very patient for results. My goal when I go to the gym, I'm 51. So I just want to make sure I'm lifting safe and I'm keeping good form, and I'm not trying to ego lift and lift outside of things that create bad form. And I've known this for, most of my life. I've been working out since I was 15. So I just know that it compounds over time, and yeah, we hit plateaus and there's no ups and gains. And so I'm willing to wait through that and just keep pushing. And then you have these breakthrough moments where you add 20 pounds to your PR, and you kind of just keep doing this. And so I don't know how much I'm going to end up lifting, but I think realistically, I think I could get to 600 pounds. I can pick 600 pounds off with I can't remember what it's called, like the frame, the frame you stand in. So I can pick up 600 pounds. Just I can't do it with a deadlift bar yet.
Oh, so those aren't considered deadlifts if you do it in a cage?
They are, but they're a little bit safer because it's center loading your body mass, and your angles are a little bit different. And also you have a little bit stronger stance. And so there's some advantages to doing it with that bar versus deadlifts. And when you think about
so basically, if it wouldn't stand up to an Olympic competition, then that doesn't really count for you, right?
Now,
like
everybody should be able to lift more
like
inside of a frame. It's because the weight itself shifts further back on your axis instead of being in front of you. So you have a little bit leverage. You're really kind of just standing straight up versus having to hinge, right?
You also have the grip advantage because instead of your fist being like this,
yeah, your arms are sideways. Yeah, you get to use all of your shoulders, all of your traps to hold it versus like having to lock your blades back. So there's a lot of different function things. And when you start to lift, let's say over 400 pounds, you start to pay attention, the angle of your feet, the way you're gripping, the angle of your back, your shoulders, like you engage. So there's a lot of technical details that by then you've done a lot of reps, and you start to realize like, if I just angle my toes a little bit here, I'm stronger here. If I accelerate here, I'm stronger there. So it's the fine-tune adjustments that kind of get you above just having just large physical strength.
I measure in kilos, and I only ever started like hitting the gym in 2019. Like I never did that before. My maximum, and I never did a PR. Like I only do them in sets of 8. Otherwise I don't count it. Is 352 pounds. Is that like high or low? I don't know.
That's good. I mean, when I started focusing on deadlifts in must have been 2017. I really started being more focused on it because I used to get lightheaded, and I just go, these are hard. I don't want to do these. I'll just go do leg press and do leg extensions, right? We always use machines. I used to get dizzy and I felt like I was going to pass out. So I just kind of avoided them like most guys do. And back then I was probably lifting 315. So, I've got over 500, 520 now. So but it took 4 consistent years of showing up and every fourth day doing leg day and pushing it and taking some recovery days and eating healthier and not injuring myself, because injuring sets you back like 6 months sometimes. And so that's just consistency over time. I'm not in a hurry. I'm 51. Like, I'm not trying to like set some record, but I think when I'm 60, I'll still be lifting a lot of weight. I don't feel old. I don't have any pains. I don't have any issues.
And when you post that stuff online, like, what's your motivation behind posting it?
I think that here's one of the reasons I do that. It's because I think I want to motivate people to go to the gym. I think that when I was in my mid 30s, I sold my first company. I was 34. And so I had all this money in the bank and I got kind of lazy, and I was hanging around with other people who were kind of getting lazy, and they had all these excuses. And, I got a shoulder injury from football and my left knee. And like, I had those injuries too, lower back pains. It's because I let myself get out of shape. And so I was kind of like the dad bod pudgy guy, late 30s. And when I was in my mind, I always felt like I was still an athlete because I was at a younger age. But when I looked in the mirror in the bathroom every day, I was like, I don't see what I think I am. I look like I'm an outer shape dad bod guy. And so when I was approaching 40, I was 39. I really remember specifically, like, I'm about to be 40. I need to get this thing back on track. I need to get back into the gym, quit making excuses. And so I started at 39 and got back into it, and I started to see initial gains. I started cutting weight and getting stronger. And the funny thing about that is when you start to get rid of inflammation and you change your diet, a lot of the pains that we carry around every day and we just live with is because of inflammation. It's the crap that we're eating, the processed foods, the chemicals, fast food, fried stuff, dairy. I mean, there's a lot of things that cause inflammation that people aren't aware of. They just do it every day and they live with that pain.
So you eat very clean?
I very rarely eat dairy. I kind of minimize it. Same with carbs. I eat rice if I'm going to eat. I eat healthy carbs. I eat potatoes. Right.
I'm in Japan, so rice is easy.
That's it. I just had rice before I got on here. I had bison and rice. Like, that's a pretty healthy, lean bowl. And so changing your diet, exercising, you start to lose the inflammation and those pains go away. The ones that you're using as your excuses, if you start to lose weight, you also gain a little bit more mobility, you get more energy, you get more strength. And so now you kind of shift to like, okay, now I'm actually feeling good. I actually have energy, and I'm seeing the strength gains start to come back. Muscle memory comes back pretty quick. And then it's just like, okay, well, how am I going to challenge myself? How am I going to learn this new thing? And I just started looking at the deadlifts and the squats, and I was like, I'm just going to do it until I can get better. I'll just reduce the weight. I'll just get the form. I think that's what you should do. Don't ego lift. Just get the form locked down. Watch videos, hire a coach, get your form locked down. Don't overlift, because that's how you break form. That's how you injure yourself. And just gradually put on weight, knowing it's a lifetime game versus like, I'm trying to get this thing in 1 year. Like, no, just think it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, the rest of your life. Do it with good form. Do it safe. Your strength will increase if you're frequent with it enough, and then you'll get those results.
I think we got to wrap this up soon, but thanks for sharing about that. So I just want to end with one question. Let's say somebody has already started on this path. They might have bought some fake followers. They might have attracted an audience based on things like fake Rolexes, rented Lambos, things like that. And as difficult as it is, they've dipped their toe in this. What do you say to that person? They've got an authentic mission, which is whatever that is in their services or their products, the business they're trying to build, but they've dipped their toe in this. How would you advise this person to move forward?
I think the best way is just to be transparent and be honest. Treat it as a lesson or something that you learned, or maybe you were misled, because let's be real, there's a lot of coaches and advisors out there that will give you this fake it till you make it advice. And when you're getting started, you think, okay, that's how everybody does it. So you kind of assume that that's the game you play. And I think if you're transparent about it, go, hey, you know what? This is something I did when I was younger or a couple of years ago, and I was misled. And here's the reality of it. Go back to authenticity. Anytime you can start moving your message, directing back to authenticity, and you're vulnerable and you're really genuine in those moments, people are actually going to respect you more, because they're going to go, hey, I remember when you were kind of flexing and flashing, and thank you for telling us the truth. Now they really trust you. And that's what you want, is to have the authenticity and trust. I actually did that example, Ken, back in, there's a photo I did from 2009 that I pulled out all 10 of my cars and I put them on the driveway, and I had a detailer come over and I had them all lined up, and I had a 12-foot step ladder that I climbed up to, and I had a wide angle lens on my camera. And it was the only way I could get a shot of all the cars in one shot. And I remember when I was climbing up on that ladder, I felt like a total douchebag at the time because I was going to be flexing. I was going to use this photo on the internet. This is probably like in the forums era because Facebook was just kicking off. It probably hit Facebook at the time too. And it was meant to be inspirational and like, look how hard I work. I was still dealing with internal stuff that I hadn't worked through, where I was looking for validation. I didn't grow up with money. I grew up kind of broke. And so you're doing these things, trying to seek validation. You're trying to get that feel. You're trying to get accepted. And you think that I watch all these other rich people. That's what rich people do. So, and this is what I'm going to do. And so you try to validate it. There's a lot of internal things that you do. And now when I share that photo, sometimes I'll tell that backstory, just like I told your viewers right here. I was like, I knew I was climbing up that ladder and I was kind of feeling like a douchebag, but I still snapped that photo and I still posted that photo. And that was like the 35-year-old version of me. And so I don't like to be a hypocrite when I see people doing that today, but I do understand where they're coming from. But I like to kind of give them the guidance, like, bro, I did that too. And I know where you're at. I understand. Work with your therapist. Work with a good coach, get some good people in your circle that will kind of keep you inside the rails and help you with those kind of things when you're feeling that self negativity and you're trying to validate and you're trying to do external validation, because it's inside that matters. How you feel about yourself is way more important than what the other people are going to think about you. So, go back to authenticity and understand, like, that was a lesson. And people love when I share that kind of stuff. And they're like, man, like, nobody would ever admit that kind of stuff. It's like, I wouldn't have done that in my 30s, but I'll do that now. I started doing it in my 40s. I was like, this is what I used to do. This is what I kind of feel bad about. And this is where I had the money. I wasn't faking the things, but the flex stuff kind of just got kind of weird,
I get that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that it's going to be very difficult for anybody listening who, is already having some success to figuratively climb down a mountain, and in order to climb back the right mountain. But if you find it, if you're feeling some nudge, internally, then I'd really recommend you listen to it, because you just feel better about yourself knowing that you're doing it the right way. Tony, thank you so much for sharing all that. And I really appreciate you coming back to the show. And for everybody else who's listening, I'll see you next week.
No hustle worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fade, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.